Hello everybody, it's Barry, and I'm doing a review today. I might start doing more of these as time goes on, because Amazon Prime has some weird stuff on it, and sometimes some really good stuff. I might just do things I watched on Amazon. But tonight, we're going to do Critical Role's The Legend of Vox Machina, or Machina, or however you want to pronounce it. I don't even remember how they pronounce it. Um, it's an animated show based off of the podcast Critical Role, which is a bunch of people playing D&D. For a very short description of it, I don't watch it. I'm not really a fan of it myself. Has a very loyal fan base, but they made an animated series of their characters. From what I understand, this is before Critical Role podcast. This is their home game. This is the story of how everything worked for them, or for their characters in D&D. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a show with new episodes coming out on Fridays. It's not all up there. You can't binge watch the whole thing, but as of this taping, there are 3 episodes, and I've seen all 3. And they host watch parties, I think, Thursday nights on Twitch on their website. And I'll put the link in the description below so you can get to their site. As some of you know, I'm a nerd. I play LARP, role-playing games, D&D. I've played off and on for like 20-something years now. So, yeah, like this kind of content is stuff that I would generally enjoy. Sword and sorcery type stuff. And not all Dungeons and Dragons based media has been a hit. There's been a lot of misses, including the Dungeons and Dragons movies, which are just not good. But this one, let's get started on actually reviewing the content. The animation is nice. This isn't. If you go on Amazon, there's a thing called Arcane, which is League of Legends, the video game. It's a show based on that. It's like cel-shaded CGI animation, and that's just not for me. This is more not hand-drawn, because I think everything's done on a computer nowadays, but hand-drawn anime style, or newer anime at least. And it just looks really, really nice. And animated series as opposed to live action, I can totally get behind, because it's a better way to convey certain things. It's cheaper. Special effects don't really cost you anything. You just draw them. You don't have to spend hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars paying somebody to make your special effects. I like the animation. It's a fun show. It's reminiscent of a Dungeons and Dragons game. There's some modern day stuff interjected here and there. They drop the F-bomb a few times. There's just it's done for humor, I believe, and it's what happens if you're playing a game of it around the table. You break character and make a joke here and there. Maybe you don't speak in character all that well because you don't want to sound weird with a weird old English accent, so you just say modern day stuff and assume it's translated. Some of that makes it into the show. The example, when they're fighting a big enemy and they're trying to come up with a plan. I don't want to spoil the plot here, but they're trying to come up with a plan, and one of the characters is like, basically, we don't need a plan. We're Vox Machina. Let's f things up. And it's something you would say at the table. It's not not an in character thing to say, but it made it in, and it's funny every once in a while. If it's overused, it's not funny anymore. But that's reminiscent of another movie I really enjoyed called The Gamers Darkness Rising, which was people playing D&D basically. It showed their real life, and then it showed them in the game, and in the game they played their characters physically as part of the movie, and it was funny. This is like that, but an animated, better story, I think, version. They have the tropes of a typical adventuring party. They get the big dumb barbarian, the horny bard, the priest who's trying to get them to do good stuff, the guy who's really smart and snooty, and everything's there. Your rogue that steals things all the time. They don't really use a lot of, if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, they don't use a lot of Dungeons and Dragons terms. Like I said, barbarian. I don't think they ever call Grog a barbarian at any point. They call him a heavy, I think, at some point, which is some made-up term. They don't call the one guy an artificer, or artificer, or however you want to say that. And I think that's just because Dungeons and Dragons has it as a class that they use, and they didn't want to get copyright issues with Hasbro. They do use Bard. I think that they've used the term Bard a few times, which is from D&D, but it's also not strictly a Dungeons and Dragons term. But you won't see a lot of that. So if you're a D&D fan and you are like, oh, I want to see what Magic Missile looks like or whatever, it's probably not going to be in here. Sorry to say. But it hits all the notes that you want for an adventure movie of this type. This was crowdfunded, which is an important thing to note, because it basically shows the power of crowdfunding. This is like Kickstarter or GoFundMe or Indiegogo or however they did it, I don't remember. But they are special because Critical Role is already popular. And people are like, oh, Critical Role is going to make an anime, basically. I'm going to throw all my money at it. And they got funded right away. Like, it shot up to millions. It was, and you can tell, I mean, it's a quality product. It's got professional voice actors and professional animation, and everything's good. I hope that this trend of crowdfunding good things carries over into horror films. And if anybody wants to crowdfund a horror film and put me in it, I will gladly be in your movie. As long as I could get in a movie, that would be great. But hopefully that kind of trend continues, and this isn't a one-off fluke of, well, Critical Role did it, but nobody else can pull it off. I don't want that to happen. I would love to see crowdfunded stuff happen more often. Independent film, I've crowdfunded a few here and there, so I know that it gets done, but it's on a much smaller scale than this. I would like to see it become more of a regular thing. One other thing it does prove is that quality content about gaming, about Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or Warhammer or whatever, is marketable. With the pandemic, people have been at home more. And the way Critical Role does it, and the way a lot of people are doing it now for role-playing games, is doing it online through a virtual tabletop, like Roll20, or I just saw another one a few days ago and I can't remember the name of it. I'll probably put it up here on the screen somewhere for you to see once I remember during editing. But the virtual tabletop is a way to go. You can use Discord if you want. There's video chat on Discord, Zoom, all of those. Anything you've been using for meetings for the last 2 years from home, you can use to play D&D. It doesn't even necessarily have to have video, but it helps. If you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, medieval fantasy, like the early 80s stuff, Conan and Red Sonja and all of those, that type of thing, this is probably firmly in your wheelhouse, and I really enjoyed this show. Give it a watch on Amazon Prime when you get a chance, and new content comes out apparently every Friday, so I'll be waiting for it when Friday rolls around. But until next time, I'll see you at the movies. Goodbye.